Hey guys, there's a huge misconception in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe about the best controller to use in the game. 5 months ago, Shortcat uploaded a video recommending the GameCube controller for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I do not believe that it is the best controller for the game. The two reasons that Shortcat recommends the GameCube controller are motion glider and soft drifting. If you don't know what these are, I'll explain. In Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, when you have motion controls on, you can steer the cart using motion controls or the left analog stick. But did you know that in a glider these inputs stack? Well, because of this, if you hold a perfect up diagonal on the stick and try to replicate that angle on motion controls at the same time while you're in a glider, you can tilt your cart up to 90 degrees to the left or right. This allows you to gain lots of speed while in a glider. But playing with motion controls is a hassle and annoying. So if you want to keep using your Pro Controller or Joy-Cons, then you just have to use normal glider vectoring, which is pretty much motion gliding except less potent. But did you know that the same thing works with the D-pad? One of the greatest coincidences in Mario Kart history is that if and only if you have motion controls enabled, then the D-pad and left stick inputs do stack, which means yes, in a glider, you can tilt your cart just as much as you would with motion controls with the D-pad by holding the same perfect up diagonal on the D-pad and the left stick at the same time. The only issue is that you still have to have motion controls on. But you might be thinking, doesn't the GameCube controller not have a motion sensor? The answer is yes. If you enable motion controls on the GameCube controller, then you can still take advantage of the D-pad's motion stacking without having the nasty side effects of motion input. If you don't think this is a big thing, take a look at how Motion Glider, along with a few shrooms, allowed me to slide into first place on this Sky Garden race. The second reason people love the GameCube controller is that the octagonal frame around the joystick aligns perfectly with the angles for soft drifting if you calibrate the controller stick slightly up. All this sounds great, right? Well, what if I told you there was a less expensive, more optimized controller that could motion glide without you ever having to force your hand across the controller? This controller is called the Power A Spectra Enhanced Wired Controller and can be found for between $30 to $40 Canadian, brand new from Amazon. Before I talk about why this is the best controller for the game, you might be concerned that this controller is not made by Nintendo as the GameCube or Pro controllers are. But here's the thing, Nintendo licenses this controller, meaning they deem it a good controller. Since we now know that the big N stands behind this controller, let's go over why it is better than the GC or Pro controllers. The main point about the GameCube controller was that it can motion glide without ever having to use motion controls, as it does not have a motion sensor, but every wired controller does not have a motion sensor, so you can pull this off with any wired controller. But here's the thing that makes the Spectra Enhanced controller special. The controller has two buttons on the back that can be assigned to any other button on the controller. If you make one of these buttons D-pad up and the other one D-pad left, then you can motion glide by holding those two buttons along with a 45-degree angle on the stick. One issue you might think it has is that it can only motion glide to one side, but don't ask me why. You can motion glide in both directions even though there's no button mapped to the right side. Even outside of motion gliding, and even Mario Kart as a whole, it's a great controller. It has anti-friction rings around the joysticks. The joysticks feel great in general. It's comfortable. It has home, capture, and minus buttons unlike the GameCube controller, and it even has RGB that can be changed to 8 different colors. For sometimes even cheaper, you can get a Power A non-Spectra Enhanced Wired controller with tons of different Nintendo themed designs to pick from. I prefer the clean all black look with RGB of the Spectra, and the price does fluctuate, so they can be the same price. But let's talk soft drifting. This is an extremely important technique in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The Spectra does not have any GameCube style notches in the frame of the stick. But here's the thing, motion gliding with this amount of ease is something you simply cannot learn to do on a GameCube controller. Well, soft drifting is something that can be learned on any controller, and it's quite easy to learn too. If not having to learn soft drift is something that's very important to you, then I will link to Shortcat's video on the GC controller in the description. However, for most of us who can or have learned to soft drift, the Power A Spectra Enhanced Wired controller is the best controller for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.